This is Super Tubos. And this is Katie winning at Super Tubos. We're going to make fantasy picks for the MEO Rip Curl Pro Portugal and answer the question, which female surfer is going to win at Super Tubos? I've spent the last 2 weeks poring over stats and watching replays from the first two events to bring you a breakdown of the Tier A women, and I have a few takes for your fantasy team. If you make the right picks, you can win prizes each event, be the overall champion, and win the coveted Hall of Fame trophy featuring a mini replica of John John's Red Tiger surfboard on a trophy base. Our league is still open, and you can join at oldsurfdad.com. We've had some good waves for the first two events of the season, and the long-range forecast for Portugal suggests a continuing trend towards good swell, but we need to keep our eyes on the conditions. Remember, this forecast will change, and you can see daily updates at oldsurfdad.com. Last year, I was in Portugal for the event doing interviews and shooting the free surf sessions. I learned a couple of things. First, Super Tubos is way heavier than it looks on the broadcast. It will pound you and hold you down. You can feel the beach thump when the sets come. Second, Portugal is an amazing place with a beautiful coastline, good surf, and incredible food. I want to live there forever, but for now, I have to settle for watching the WSL broadcast. Dang. I usually reference my website, oldsurfdad.com, several times in each video because I think it's a powerful tool to make picks. I crunch a lot of numbers, and I'm about to show you some geeky additions and a few hidden gems on the WSL site. But some of you don't care about all that, and that's cool. You can always skip ahead and go to my picks because each video is broken down in timestamps or chapters. Watch what you want, it's all good. For those that stayed, thanks for taking a moment to nerd out with me. Let's start with my website, and if you hover over the fantasy surfing menu item here, you can go directly to where you would like, but we're going to click Fantasy page. Here you can scroll down and see the top 5 fantasy teams from the last event and the form to join our league. Next, the entire WCT schedule, and then the surf report. Now we get to past results for the current event, which is Super Tubos. This is a great place to start, and I think at minimum, you should see who has won the event in the past. I limit this to 3 years to keep the stats more relevant, and there's only 2 listed here because the event was canceled in 2021 due to COVID. Scroll a little further and you get here, the power rankings. This is not opinion, but based on real numbers. You can see a power score, the average heat score, and the surfers' past results. There's even a link to the surfers' Instagram page if you want to watch their recent clips. So where do these numbers come from? If you continue to scroll, you'll see links to the spreadsheets I use to calculate the data. Feel free to click and look at how the sausage is made. Now let's get into the WSL site, and you'll probably know about this first one. If you go to worldsurfleague.com and click on the event here, hopefully there'll be a heat draw tab here, but sometimes the WSL is slow to post this. Here it shows you matchups for the opening round. You can also pick surfers here, and you can see who the majority thinks will win. This can be used to find surfers you think could cause upsets and differentiate your picks from other fantasy teams. If you stay with the pack, you'll be mediocre, but it's also risky to go against the favorites. Next on the WSL website is athlete performance, which can be found by going to your fantasy team page where you make your picks. Then go to previous event by clicking here, and then clicking in the upper right on the blue athlete performance link. Here you see how each surfer performed, and it shows who is trending. If you take it back to Pipeline, here's something interesting. You can see that even though Baron Mamiya won, John Florence was actually a better fantasy pick because he had greater heat score totals. Same thing happened in the women's at Pipe with Katie and Molly. Remember that fantasy points are based on your surfers' heat scores. They get a 10, you get a 10. Finally, the WSL rankings show you how they determine the tiers for fantasy. For example, here's the women's rankings, and you can see women's Tier A matches the top 3 women. And so I guess it's time to talk about them. The Tier A women, the History Makers, Pipeline Chargers, and Sunset Shredders. They are radical, competitive, and equally matched. this makes it a hard choice. It all used to be so easy. Pick Carissa in Tier A, and you're good to go. In fact, last year's champion Yard Panther did just that, which turned out to be a small part of his winning strategy, but no longer. I broke down the Tier A women's results for this season, and I was surprised to see how far ahead Molly is in stats and results. Her power number is more than twice Katie's, which means her surfing is scoring significantly higher, and her average heat score is a whopping 14.36. Those are serious John numbers. Betty Lou is second with great performances in both events, and while Katie is a distant third in stats, she has better numbers at Super Tubos with a win last year, and Molly has yet to beat Katie head-to-head on the CT level. Fun fact, before winning the Super Tubos event last year, Katie found herself in the elimination round and fought all the way back to the championship, earning her first CT victory. All three can ride a barrel, but based on this information, Molly is probably the strongest pick with her power and higher scores. Betty Lou is a close second. But I'm all about Katie's magical rhythm, underrated competitiveness, and creative surfing, so I'll be making her my power surfer, although I don't recommend it. In Tier B, I'm immediately going to choose Tatiana Weston Webb, mostly because she was number 1 in the power rankings, and she seemed to have improved this season. I know I said I was on a Tati-free diet, but I'm willing to have a cheat day or a cheat event and pick Tati. Now, I'm not surprised at Brisa Hennessy's strong ranking here, and Joanne Tefei seems to be back, but it's hard to pass up the world champ Caroline Marks in Tier B. While Isabella and Luana have surfed well so far, I think Lakey, Tyler, and especially Gabriella Bryan have underperformed to their potential, and one of them will probably have a good run in Portugal. In Tier C, starting on the wild card, you may recall Francesca Velasco as the 2022 World Junior Champion. She had an impressive run defeating Sierra Kerr, Aaron Brooks, and Sawyer Lindblad in solid overhead surf on her way to victory. If you want a local underdog, here you go. India Robinson looks fired up, and Sawyer Lindblad is doing better than I thought she would, but my top two here are Sally and hard charger Sophie McCulloch. I mean, did you see her at Sunset? I want to pick Sophie, but the smart move is to go with boring competitive experience, so I'll take Sally. In Tier A men's, wearing the yellow jersey is John Florence, and I know this sounds crazy, but I've heard the rumor more than once that he may leave the tour. This is unconfirmed to the point of pure speculation, but would it really surprise you? He has a baby on the way, he doesn't need the tour or money, and he can get better waves with his brothers. Plus there's that Trestles final thing. John won the Super Tubos event back in 2016, which also secured his first title, but that was 8 years ago. Last year, he had an equal 17th, although the year before, he had a third place finish. Looking at the rest of Tier A, you could easily make an argument for any of these surfers. Jordy is currently on fire, and a relaxed, happy, confident Jordy is dangerous. He's been runner-up here twice in 2019 and in 2015 to Mick Fanning. Last year, he got an equal 17th, and another way to say it is that he did not survive. If you know, you know. I'm going to say Barron likes warm tubes better than cold ones. Not beers, barrels. And that's a dumb generality, but I don't think he's a Tier A pick for my fantasy team at this location. Kanoa's consistent, and Liam and Connor are starting to show their potential. But I'm going to pick Jack Robinson as my power surfer to go back-to-back and also select the power surfing of Ethan Ewing. I'm going to watch the opening round and may put Jordy on my team if he's still surfing like it's 2015. Now, Tier B men's is where you can pick up a bulk of your points if you choose wisely, and with that in mind, I'll go with the 2022 champ, Griffin Colapinto. Next, I'll select the 2018 and 2019 champion, Elo Ferreira, who loves this wave and just wants to put on a show.
I hope we can put on a show.
I've been super impressed by Ian Gentile's surfing, and I would like to welcome him to my team, as well as Callum Robson, who loves him a thick Super Tubos pit and has a Yeti cooler to show for it. Moving to Tier C, Gabriel Medina is available in the 99-cent store, and I'm not going to overthink it. Sure, everyone's going to pick him, but I'm going to follow the herd on this one. He has dug himself a hole and desperately needs the results. Can you imagine he gets cut? I can't see it happening, but that would be brutal. Medina's lack of results, Zhao Chianca's injury, and Felipe's year off has everyone talking about the demise of the Brazilian Storm, but I think it's not going anywhere. Truth is, though, that there's no Brazilian in the top 10, which probably hasn't happened in a decade, maybe more. Who's the highest ranking Brazilian men's surfer at the moment? That would be Italo at number 13. You probably didn't know that hard-charging Frenchman Joan Deroux was runner-up in 2019, and he's my backup reselect along with Sammy Pupo. I still believe in Cole Houshman, but my fantasy team can no longer withstand the point losses he's dished out. Now, Caio Ibelli is struggling, but I'm going to give him one last chance and put him on my team and see what happens. Remember, we get to reselect before the bracket round of 32, so be ready just before the elimination round ends. You may get to look at the matchups, and you may not. For those of us in the U.S., we'll probably be staying up late and reselecting our team. So there's my picks, and you can also find them on my website at the My Fantasy Picks page. I'll be posting reselects on Instagram at oldsurfdad.com. I'm happy to report that my survival team is still alive. In Hawaii, 57% of the entire league was called, and only 43% remain. My odds get better. I'll stay with my pick the best surfer possible strategy and go with 2022 champion Griffin Colapinto. If you're still trying to survive, you can see survival stats on the website at oldsurfdad.com. Our next event is at Bell's, and I have a special interview lined up for a live show I will announce soon. Thanks for watching, and best of luck with your fantasy team.